Welcome to the She Speaks to Inspire podcast. I'm your host, Julia Kraft, your authentic expression mentor and public speaking coach. She Speaks to Inspire is an empowering public speaking podcast for women with public speaking fear. Unlike other podcasts on public speaking, She Speaks to Inspire not only gives you tips to be a confident communicator under pressure, but also helps you regulate your nervous system for less anxiety, learn lifestyle practices to reduce burnout and overwhelm, and reconnect with your feminine leadership presence for more authenticity and comfort in your skin. I believe it's the quiet ones, especially the quiet women, who have the most important ideas. I believe the world really does need your voice. So let's dive in. I've been working with women around their speaking and building confidence for over 10 years. Thousands and thousands of women that I've worked with and talked with. I don't remember even one woman saying to me, I want to feel more like a woman when I'm speaking. But what they have said to me is things like, the men in my office speak over me and interrupt me. I'm in a male-dominated environment. I feel like I'm the odd one out. I don't know how to do small talk with the men before my presentation. I want to make sure that I come across as a professional. I don't want to be too emotional. I've heard these things hundreds of times. So today we'll talk about how you can be a professional at work, in your career, and be a woman. Because it's my conviction that it's important that you feel like a woman and that you discover what it means to feel like a woman, even at work in a professional environment, in order to overcome and get rid of performance anxiety as a woman. There's lots of other podcast episodes I've done about the nervous system, but performance anxiety, real quick, performance anxiety is a dysregulation of your nervous system in response to a feeling of stress or trauma or threat. Men and women experience this. However, men and women have very different biological nervous systems, and the regulation process is different. First of all, the challenge that I see a lot of women have is that they're, even on an unconscious level, emulating men. When you think of a leader, close your eyes and bring to mind what a professional leader at work looks like. What is the image that comes to mind? Now, I don't know what your image is, but the stereotypical image, and this is, I got to be totally honest, this is the image that comes to my mind when I ask this question, is a man, a white man in a suit with a red tie. And maybe that's because, I'm of the generation that I grew up, my father went to work. He actually owned his own business, but, he went to an office. He wore a suit, white shirt with a red tie almost every day. I grew up in that generation. I've seen those movies. It's in our cultural conditioning. I'm so curious what comes up for you, so please send me a message if it's something different, because I'd be really curious to hear about it. But when I do this exercise with women, I often hear the same thing, a man in a suit. So wherever that conditioning came from for you, do you find yourself on some level subconsciously, unconsciously emulating men in order to be professional? And part of the energy, the quality of emulating men in a professional environment is something around competition, because that's the masculine energy it's very natural. Not that men aren't collaborative. I just mean there's, those boys club kind of feeling where men are one-upping each other. That's a really natural thing when men get together, and they don't take it personally. They don't take it necessarily as criticism. It's actually a form of camaraderie. Women compete too, but actually that's not like a natural feminine energy. And when we're in competition mode, it feels more like criticism. And we're really sensitive to criticism, and criticism is very detrimental to our nervous systems. So we have a very different relationship to competition. If you are coming at a professional environment from an energy of competition, it's probably going to feel like criticism to you, and that's going to be really destructive to your confidence, your self-esteem, and your perception of it being safe to speak up, put yourself out there. I also want to call out the fact that feminism and the whole feminist movement created a lot of opportunities for women. I'm so glad. I mean, that is why I do what I do these days. I'm so thankful for all the work that feminists did in the 70s, 80s, 90s, up to today. The goal was so that women could be equal to men. I believe equality is a good thing in terms of why shouldn't I make the same amount of money as a man does for the same job? Sure. Why shouldn't I be able to vote necessarily? Equality is good in terms of human rights. However, what I feel has been lost in the midst of fighting for equality is the acknowledgement and acceptance and support of differences. There's lots of movements in the last 10, 15 years or so for diversity and inclusion in the workplace, in politics, etc. And I don't want to get into political arguments. I don't want to get into any of that. There's huge movements around diversity and inclusion, but I've never seen a diversity and inclusion program. And I've actually worked with several diversity and inclusion trainers on their programs and their speaking. I've never seen a program that's about the difference between men and women and how to navigate that difference in the workplace. Sure, there's relationship programs about how to navigate that in your intimate relationships. Sure, that's a different topic in a lot of ways. But what about at work? We're just supposed to be equal? When it comes to you performing, right, which is you showing up to that weekly meeting week after week after week at your best with full confidence, full energy, leadership presence, clarity of mind, is it reasonable to expect a woman who has a monthly cycle to show up consistently in the same way all the time? For example, when a woman has her period, when a woman is going through menopause, when she's breastfeeding, when she's pregnant, when she had a miscarriage. These are very natural, even you could say healthy, feminine experiences that men don't have. How are you going to show up as your best self and feel confident amidst all the changes, the fluctuations, the watery emotions, the hormones, which are totally natural, of being a woman? Total transparency. I had a miscarriage recently, which, by the way, the statistics say that 1 in 4 women experience a miscarriage in their life. My husband continued to go to work, and I know he was affected, of course, but he wasn't dealing with the physical impacts of that event, right? Or the hormonal impacts of that event. I felt this pressure inside of me to continue working, to continue showing up, to make sure my social media was consistent, to not drop the ball, not cancel things. Since this actually wasn't my first miscarriage, I knew better this time, and I allowed myself more grace. I allowed myself to not be on that hamster wheel of productivity, and I reached out for support. That's really part of the solution for women being able to be professional and embrace the difference, the natural difference in being a woman. First of all, make sure that you shift your expectations of yourself. Make sure your expectations of yourself are in alignment with the reality of being a woman, right? And then get creative with how you're going to build in flexibility to your lifestyle and to your work. Now, I don't know what that means for you, but I think flexibility is really important as a woman. Part of creating that lifestyle and work relationship where you have flexibility is communicating. Clarifying your needs and then communicating your needs to the people in your life, your bosses, your coworkers, and communicating your boundaries. So, for example, you just got your period and you're asked to work late, or you feel the expectation to work late and finish that project when you don't feel well and need to rest. Perhaps nobody is saying to you, you have to work. But what would it be like, not necessarily to communicate you have your period, you don't have to be that open, right? But to simply say, I'm signing off for the night, to support yourself and choose yourself, to choose your feminine nature, to support your feminine nature over external expectations, perceived expectations. To zoom out for a moment, this is how our work culture will change, big picture, to value women in a more authentic way. And this is how women are going to evolve into healthier, more whole people, and therefore mothers and create a generation that has a healthier and more whole outlook on life. Oh, I'm pretty big there. There's the old stigma of women being too emotional, too weak, too frail. If we go way back, I was watching this TV show last night, actually, that's set in 1889. And there was a scene about how women are too emotional for the workplace. They actually said that in this TV show. This is also in our conditioning way back in the backs of our minds. We've all heard it, from my generation at least. And so there's something taboo around women having the fluctuations that are completely natural for us to have. There's a fear in a lot of women that I've worked with of having feelings and emotions and needs. I want to empower you to believe in yourself and the value of being exactly where you are in the physical state that you're in, whether it's menstrual cramps or the exhaustion of breastfeeding or the confusion and sadness of a miscarriage, that you can be a woman and a professional at the same time. I hope this conversation is valuable to you and it's something that I'm passionate about. Let me know what questions you have, what this brings up for you. Let's start a conversation about women in the workplace being women and how to create the flexibility that we need in our personal and professional lives to take the best care of ourselves that we can and to support ourselves to also be of the greatest service to others, to our companies, to our clients. The world really does need your voice. It's time for you to speak up to inspire. Thanks for listening. This has been She Speaks to Inspire with Julia Kraft, your authentic expression mentor and public speaking coach. I'm so glad you joined me. And I hope you got so much out of this episode. If you want to learn more about Speak to Inspire training programs and get inspired, head over to speaktoinspire.com or follow us on Instagram at She Speaks to Inspire. Never forget, the world needs your voice, and it's time for you to speak to inspire. See you in the next episode.